everybody? Superworks fan here for another little video here. So, as many of you know, I just reviewed the 2-liter turbocharged Camaro this past week, and you know, it's a very controversial car. Of course, everyone freaked out whenever the Mustang first got a turbo as well, and so I think a lot of the Camaro people are also, you know, freaking out about the idea of a turbocharged Camaro. So, for those that aren't offended by the turbo Camaro and Mustang, I'm here to compare the two. So much like how I compared the Mustang GT to the new 2016 Camaro SS last year, I want to do the same kind of thing here today with my EcoBoost Mustang and compare it and see, you know, how it drives compared to the 2016 Camaro. And this is just going to be, I'm going to be in my Mustang here and just, you know, recalling back from a few days ago when I reviewed the Camaro and kind of sharing some of my thoughts. And if you want to go back and watch the first video, I compare more of, you know, the looks and things like that in that video, and the interior and all that kind of stuff. This video is going to primarily focus on the driving dynamics of the two cars, because they're very similar but very different in a lot of different ways. So the main standout thing, if you were to drive an EcoBoost Mustang and then hop into an EcoBoost Camaro, or, you know, a turbocharged Camaro, I should say, the main thing you're going to notice right off the bat is the visibility is way worse in the Camaro, but the handling is way better. And that is the biggest thing. Is the Camaro is about 200 pounds lighter in turbo form than the EcoBoost Mustang, at around 3,300 pounds. This EcoBoost here is 3,500 pounds. And so when you're in corners, you'll probably feel that a little bit, but it's mostly just the way that they've tuned it and the way that the suspension and the chassis is set up so that the Camaro just turns on a dime. It's super quick turning, it just wants to dart around, and it feels much smaller than it is, and it's just really a fun thing. And this is still fun on back roads here, but there's just a little more weight, and it's just it's a little bit of a different sensation. This feels a little bit longer, and you know, the Camaro, it honestly feels like you're driving something just way smaller and way sportier. Like, it feels like a slightly larger Lotus Elise versus this, which it feels like a muscle car that's pretty good on back roads. You know, you got the independent rear suspension now and things like that are new to the Mustang, but you know, it's not quite as good. Now, I'm on snow tires and stuff. I've driven some of the other Mustangs, you know, with a performance package. Mine does not have the performance package, but I do have lowering springs and sway bars. But even with all those enhancements, it's not quite as athletic, and it just cannot match the, you know, baked-in feeling that the Camaro has just from the factory. And it's a really great setup, and you know, handling is really, honestly, if you don't care about anything other than handling, but you want a Mustang or a Camaro, I think the Camaro would have to be your choice. But the reason why I own an EcoBoost Mustang and not a Camaro with a turbo or any other motor is mostly for the livability of it. You know, like I said, the visibility is just so much better. I mean, you feel like you're in an SUV when you hop in the Mustang versus the Camaro, where, you know, this dashboard is way higher up and you feel way lower, and everything is, you know, you gotta peer out over the sides, and this you can see out of it very well, and it's just it's much easier to drive in that regard. Although the manual transmission in the Camaro is easier to use than the Mustang, that's for sure. But the visibility was just one thing that was a pretty big drawback for me. You know, looks are subjective, but I will mention briefly, I prefer the Mustang looks much better than the looks of the Camaro. And so that's another thing that's totally subjective again. Same thing goes for the interior. I like the interior on the Mustang better than that on the Camaro. And so that's, you know, just personal taste, and, you know, you can go and look at pictures or watch the video reviews of both cars and decide for yourself which one you like better. But as far as driving dynamics go, the Camaro just handles way better than any kind of Mustang could hope to. I mean, I haven't driven a GT 350 or a 350R, so I can't say that definitely, but I don't know. The Camaro just, it's really amazing, because it's a shorter wheelbase, and that's the biggest thing that you feel, I think. And power-wise, that's the next big thing, because, you know, the turbo Camaro has 275 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. The Mustang here, the EcoBoost, has 310 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. So it's more powerful. This is also a 2.3-liter turbocharged engine versus the Camaro's 2.0-liter. So you do have an additional 0.3 liters of displacement, and so for those two reasons, you know, the additional power and the larger engine, it does feel, I think, slightly punchier. And obviously it's been a while since I've driven my car stock. It's been about a year or so. But I remember in stock form, it had lots of good punch down low there, and it still ripped your head off. Even stock, I was really impressed with the way the EcoBoost Mustang felt. Now, the turbo Camaro, it has pretty good pull down low, but it does have a little bit more rip up top, and I think it's leaning more on that being slightly smaller displacement, and the turbo, you know, coming on a little bit higher in the RPM band than it does seem to come on in the stock Mustang EcoBoost here. And so I think the Mustang feels gutsier, but whenever you actually compare the performance numbers of the two cars, they're very, very close. The Camaro, I think the turbo Camaro is like 5.5 seconds 0 to 60, and the EcoBoost Mustang is right around the same. So they're basically the same performance-wise. That's thanks to the Camaro being 200 pounds lighter. That makes up for the fact that it's down on power a little bit. And of course, if you aren't worried about a warranty, you could always obviously tune both cars and, you know, get whatever kind of power out of them you want. That's one thing that, you know, the turbo versions have over the V6 is you can do some stuff to the V6, but it's just so much easier to turn up the boost on a turbo and instantly have tons of power. Another thing we can compare here is the sound, because you know, a lot of people will say both sound horrendous, and obviously I have the Cobb catback on mine, or turbo back I should say, so mine sounds a little more aggressive than a standard EcoBoost Mustang does. From the factory they have very little sound at all, honestly, sadly. And so you know, as far as the sound goes, I think the Camaro sounds a little raspier and sounds a little more like a, you know, any other hatchback thing that you would, you know, imagine a four-cylinder to sound like, an import, I guess. It kind of has a little bit more of that sound to it. I think the Mustang has a lot of that as well, but it has a little bit of a different tone to it. It kind of is a little more muscular since it's a little bit of a larger displacement. But again, you just have to go and watch exhaust videos comparing the two, and you can decide for yourself. But both cars from the factory really don't have much sound, and I wish that one had an edge over the other in that regard, but they really don't. So at the end of the day, which one is more fun to drive? And that really depends on what you want to do with it. If you are on back roads constantly and carving up a back road is your #1 priority, then I would say that the Camaro is definitely the one to pick. But if you're on straight roads more often and you don't care either way as far as looks or interior or anything like that goes, then I would think you would probably enjoy the Mustang a little bit better, just because it has a little bit more of that power down low, and because it just feels a little bit punchier overall than the Camaro did. And that's one thing, whenever I was driving the Camaro, I kept feeling like, this feels good, but it doesn't really, you know, impress me quite as much as the EcoBoost Mustang. That actually got me to giggle, you know, even stock, you know, just stomping on it. It was, you know, laugh out loud fast. And the Camaro was kind of like, well, this is okay, but, you know, it's kind of, you kind of were wanting for more. Now, if you're on a back road, it's plenty of power, but if you're on a wide open straight road, you may be wishing for a little bit more power. And that's something that I think, you know, could go for both cars, but especially for the Camaro, that stands out to me. But yeah, like I said, all the other stuff is subjective. You know, as far as base trim versus base trim, the Camaro is a couple $1,000s more, but in exchange for that couple $1,000s more on the base price, you do get a nicer base car, with the Camaro having a 7-inch touchscreen versus the base Mustang having a tiny little screen. But there, if you go for the EcoBoost Premium, like I have, with the larger screen, the heated and cooled seats and all that kind of stuff, then you're, you know, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 over what a base Camaro is. And trying to get a, you know, 2LT Camaro that has all the same stuff that this has, you're going to be looking at a car that's into the $30,000 range. So they kind of, it's one of those things that they're kind of playing off each other, and they go back and forth. The Camaro has an edge if you want a base car, and if you like cloth seats. If you want leather, though, then you can get a Mustang with leather for cheaper than you can get a Camaro with leather. So, stuff like that. Minor differences, but I gotta say, I'm still definitely Team Mustang, that's for sure. Love this thing. It's so much fun, especially now with all the modifications on it. It's just such a blast. And but yeah, obviously though, the Camaro is a fantastic car. It really, really is. I'm not a fanboy at all. That's why I can, you know, praise the Camaro as much as I am. It's fantastic. But I think as far as the Camaro goes, you know, if I were to get one, I would definitely probably spend the extra $1,500 for a V6 over the 4-cylinder, most likely, you know, because it's nice. You can't get a V6 V6 Mustang with leather anymore, or with any of these nice features. You still can with the Camaro. So those that are in the V6 camp, the Camaro would definitely be your choice there as well. But anyway, just some thoughts there, a little comparison. Like I said, if you want to hear more thoughts on the two cars and the V8 versions, definitely go watch the other comparison video I did last year. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.